Hello, I'm Donald McCauley and welcome to medicsvoices.com, where we talk to the key opinion leaders in health and medicine around the world. Today we're in Switzerland and I'm talking to Sven Streit. Sven, you're leading one of the key primary care departments in Switzerland. Tell me about your current role and how you got there.
Thank you so much for the invitation. So I would not consider myself as one of the leaders, but I do think that we need role models in primary care, especially in Switzerland. And for me, that started off with actually going to the streets together with GPs back in 2006, when GPs in Switzerland were very angry about the political framework, the decisions taken by politicians, mainly by limiting what they could offer or what we could offer as frontline workers. And from there, I went my road towards training to become a general internist and primary care physician, but also a researcher in the domain of mainly polypharmacy and de-prescribing. And I always felt you need to be outgoing and go and talk to people and try to convince many of them to become primary care physicians themselves. So here I am.
So let me take you back to your training, because you've had quite a lot of international training. You trained at the London School of Hygiene and then you did your PhD in Leiden. Tell me about those two experiences.
It was a very nice coincidence. I could combine them both. The London training was a distant course, and the PhD was in Leiden in the Netherlands. And so when I look back at this time, I'm so fortunate that I have received that training that I compare to with a backpack with a lot of tools, or you can also say a Swiss knife, like a lot of tools you could use. And so the master's training was more a theoretical background of the methods I could use or the stats I would need to apply. And the PhD really let me dive into projects colleagues were performing. And so I could combine these theoretical elements and tools together with the practicality of things and also like project management. And so when I consult with young colleagues, I highly recommend them to do something similar, not to think that research is just an easy start off and you can do a little bit aside of your clinical work, but also try to get a proper training that brings you a lot of joy because you become an independent researcher, hopefully, after all.
And of course, Leiden is one of the centers of general practice research. Tell us about Leiden and what you gained from it.
Well, I lost my heart in Leiden, and I'm happy I have several chambers in my heart, so I can still have my Bern heart and the Leiden heart. We went there as a family. We were then back in the test. So my wife is also a GP by training, and she's also working with me in that office here. So we share the office together. So, and we have three small children back in the days, and our smallest was just 1 year. And it was a challenge, to let go of you all, and all your friends and families and move abroad and stay there. Who to tell about, but I mean, that's also an experience we're looking back at. And one of the strongest experiences I've had with my supervisor, Jacobine Hüsseklo, was that she always started her meetings with me to ask, how is your wife? How are your children? How is your life in Leiden? And then how is project A, B, or C? And sometimes, family was not good. My wife was not doing good, or a child had an accident. So you would not continue the conversation unless all the first bullet points or ticking boxes were done. So that was really a role model for me as well.
Well, in terms of looking after students, that was certainly an inspiration. So you have a number of students at the moment. Tell us about your experience of teaching and research with your students.
I hope I can provide them with some elements I think are key for a successful research, which is certainly to lower this a little bit old-fashioned idea of hierarchies that are really vertical lines, to be more on the same eye level, when I listen to them, they give me feedback that I just let them go. I encourage them to do what they are passionate about, and that they feel a great sense of trust. And so for me, this is a key aspect, that we come together because of the same interest and joy that we do, but we also share that the first and most important feelings is the trust. And so then the pandemic also needed us to work differently. And so in this respect, it is more on trust than on supervised meetings and checking if everything is done.
Now, in terms of young GPs, you've been very involved in a number of national and international organizations for young GPs. Tell us about that experience.
It's called the Wonka virus. So you get infected, and it started off very early in my life. So to see the Wonka Europe meeting, it was in Istanbul, in Turkey. And it was impressive as a young physician and GP to mingle with all that countries and representatives, and then to sit together and discuss the struggles they have, but also the solutions they have found in that struggle. So I still attend such meetings within the EGPRN, which is like the research side of that group of the Wonka family. And for me, that is always one of the biggest place to be fully powered up with inspiration, ideas, and motivation.
Now, your career is a challenge in Switzerland, and you spoke about those challenges very briefly in that you're clearly a full-time GP, but you're also an academic. How do you balance those two?
Well, some people say I'm only half a professor, and others say I'm a half of a GP. So I needed some time to reflect that I'm a full clinical researcher. So I can combine the work of being a GP, seeing his own patient, but also navigating in a system to own your own practice and to accustom for all things that happen here as well, but also combine it with research. I certainly think it is a little bit of a split to do it both at once at the same time. But the more I engage with researchers, but also with GPs, you need those people that can build bridges and, to overcome all those silos we still see and are faced in healthcare. And so building bridges mean you need one step in practice and the other one in the academic life, in my example.
And how does that work for young GPs in Switzerland now? Can they do, I mean, you went away to do your research through Leiden and through the London School. Can you do that in Switzerland?
So we are very fortunate that at our university in Bern, we have a so-called 50-50 PhD program that allows you to continue your postgraduate education to become a specialized in general practice, alongside with a PhD. And in our team, we have a big interprofessional spirit. So I'm leading a group within the institute that is called Interprofessional Primary Care. And so we offer those positions to not only physicians, but also pharmacists and researchers from other backgrounds, so they can combine their clinical work together with an academic career they can start. And so I think this is a big game changer. On the other hand, we still invite people to go abroad and also receive people from abroad, because I think that's another crucial element, to just try to be involved with others, work with them, find solutions, collaborate with them.
Now, you started off talking about demonstrating on the street to improve the lot of general practice. Tell us about general practice in Switzerland at the moment and how it's working.
So the general practice, when you would ask patients, they might say, that's really high quality. My doctor has time for me. It is available. But the majority will also say it's a struggle to find a GP. We live in a system where GPs do not have like predefined lists of patients, but patients themselves, they would look for a GP. And so for our patients, this is a struggle, and it is a result of decades of maybe a wrong assumption that there would be too many physicians in Switzerland in general, and also in this respect, too many GPs. But our workforce currently is struggling because we have a baby boomer generation. I think this is an international situation and not so much specific for Switzerland. But what I feel is specific in Switzerland is that to fill this gap, one needs to act very swiftly and soon, because we know our training lasts so long. So when we want to convince a young student to become a GP, from that day on, it takes on average 15 years for this young fellow to enter practice. And so I feel on one side, we are still in this situation of a lack of GPs. But when I look at the universities, I have high hopes that the young generation is expressing more and more the interest to become general internists, but also primary care physicians. So it's a little bit this glass is half full, but half empty situation.
Well, many countries have a problem providing general practice in rural areas. Is that the same in Switzerland?
Yeah, yes, again, I think when you come from abroad, especially from a large country, you would not see Switzerland as a country with rural issues. When I talk to my colleagues within EURIPA, which is the Rural Association of European Doctors, they might think differently. But when you live here, we see that sometimes distance also plays a role, also in a small country, because you're more remote or you lack resources or daycare or, the elements you would need to live as a physician or as a GP in the region. However, when we survey young colleagues, we do see that most of them prefer to live more on the countryside or more outside of the bigger cities, which is a little bit comforting that this might help. But again, if you ask the population, do you have a GP? Is he or she accessible? Mostly in the remote areas, the heat is most pronounced.
So coming back to your overall view of general practice, when a young doctor comes to you and asks, what is the career path I should follow? What do you say to them?
It's your dream coming true. So for me, this is really my dream coming true. I love this profession, and I think it needs to start with passion. There are several roads like to Rome as of becoming a GP as well. We see a lot of challenges, but I would also stress the fact that we have a lot of opportunities. So you can become a very dedicated GP in a rural area, or you become a GP that is involved like in research, as in my case, or you get started in the political arena and fight for healthcare or primary care. So there are so many open roads for you to discover. It is one of the best professions a young colleague could join. However, I would also tell him or her to, really start early off with a mentoring program, to make sure that in this jungle, which it is a little bit, this training and becoming a GP gets a little bit easier for you to adjust.
Now, you're very positive about general practice, but let me finally ask you a question in general. Are you optimistic about the future of general practice itself?
Yes, I am. With some caveats, I think we should have more a sense of primary care as a broader domain, not maybe one profession, but a multitude of professions, maybe less of hierarchies, but more as teams. And we, hopefully also with, at least when it comes to Switzerland, with more digital support in how we make up decisions, how we treat patients, and how we communicate with other professions. I'm very positive about the fact that a population gets healthy, the stronger the primary care domain is. At least when we look at different countries, we could observe that. On the political arena, I think sometimes those shouting the most are heard, which then could be the bigger players, like maybe hospitals or bigger regions. And primary care sometimes still misses a little bit that big, strong voice to be heard.
Sven, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for sharing your optimism and your positive outlook for general practice primary care. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.